Our story begins in the secret underground base on the planet of Mandalore. Bo-Katan attempted to contact the captain of their stolen Imperial Remnant light cruiser, the Mandalore, but she was not able to get a response from him due to the communications being jammed, and Moff Gideon sprung his trap. But just as he was about to have them all killed, Bo-Katan was contacted by the light cruiser, warning her that a fleet of 3 Imperial Star Destroyers came out of hyperspace, which Gideon ordered his troops to stand down, as he didn't give the orders to stop jamming their communications, nor was he told that 3 Imperial Star Destroyers were coming out of hyperspace. But everything made sense when a familiar voice spoke through the communications saying that they all fought valiantly, but unfortunately, playtime was over. Gideon was just shocked by this, as he was trying to keep his composure. He was trying to figure out how this was all happening. Bo, however, was terrified and was not able to hide as well as Gideon. But she took advantage of Gideon's confusion and ordered her troops to retreat immediately and to prepare to leave the planet immediately. Din was so confused by this order and asked Bo what was happening and who was that. Bo, full of fear, tried to clear her throat and told him that man speaking was a terror to the galaxy, one that everyone thought was gone for good. His name was Grand Admiral Thrawn. Moff Gideon, not wanting to look worse than he already did to the other members of the Imperial Remnant Council, sent his Mandalorian stormtroopers after the Mandalorian warriors. He didn't believe that Thrawn would be able to do anything to him, but he was aware that other members of the Imperial Remnant Council killed every single incompetent officer in their remaining Imperial military not too long before they became the Imperial Remnant. He was also unsure if Thrawn would be able to send his starfighters down, if he still had any, down to the surface without getting blown out of the sky from the weather, as he doubted Thrawn's capabilities from the start. He thought they was probably because he never served with him much, but he also thought highly of himself as right to rule of the Imperial Remnant, as he was under the false belief that he was successful. But to be fair, on his defense, he's fighting Mandalorians, so, we're talking about the most elite warriors that are capable of killing Jedi. Bo, Din, Grogu, and the other Mandalorian warriors already had a head start at retreating and would make their way through the facility and called for their transports to meet them outside of the base, far from the Imperial checkpoint, as they had no idea what Thrawn had in mind for them. Luckily for the Mandalorians, the pilot returned back to Mandalore's surface with their Comrec-class fighter/transport before Thrawn had arrived, so they were able to get in contact with the pilot. They still had to escape through the mines, but Bo-Katan had a plan to stop the Mandalorian stormtroopers that were still on the pursuit to kill Bo's warriors. If she could escape and warn the New Republic, then maybe they could rebuild and retake Mandalore again. But she would need to go to the waters where Mandalorians banished from the Children of the Watch could bathe in it and become a part of the clan again, by simply walking into the water. So they ran into that specific room and used a secret exit in the events that they needed to escape. So Bo pressed a part of the wall that was the secret activation device, while ancient, it was still a very effective device. And so they escaped, but before they did, they threw a giant rock into the water, and the stormtroopers thought they were hiding in the water. But instead of Mandalorian warriors, they got a large, ancient, traditional Mandalorian beast, thought to have been extinct ages ago, but was still alive, and it would kill most of them upon opening fire. and the creature couldn't keep it up forever as there were a lot of stormtroopers firing upon it, and there was very little room for it to kill everyone, so it retreated back into the water, killing most of the stormtroopers, and now the stormtroopers were even too afraid to go back into the room, so they would let the Mandalorians escape. Back on the other side of the city, Bo and her Mandalorian task force escaped out of the city to an abandoned but still functioning landing pad for the transport and N1 starfighter to land, and they all hopped onto their ships and would jump to hyperspace to leave the planet immediately. And lucky for them, the support Gazanti cruisers escaped with their transports. But unfortunately, all of the fighters and their capital ship, the Mandalore, was still destroyed. But they escaped successfully nonetheless. But little did they know, Thrawn allowed them to escape for 3 reasons. 1. He wanted to make a grand entrance, no pun intended. 2. He believed with the Imperial fleets he would be able to create a massive army, as they would definitely join him and rejoice in his return. And he would also be able to destroy the New Republic easily with this fleet. And 3, it was a show of respect to the Mandalorians' ability to leave the planet and almost have a chance to destroy Moff Gideon's Imperial remnants, as he knew they would be able to destroy them if he didn't show up. Bo-Katan and her Mandalorian warriors made their way to Hosnian Prime to request an audience with the New Republic Defense Council, or even just Chancellor Mon Mothma, which honestly was a better option, even though it might be challenging, as Mothma was more a peaceful leader rather than a war leader, but the other council members would be even more useless, so it was better to just try and talk to Mon Mothma if they just could do that. When Bo made it to Hosnian Prime, the New Republic Home Defense Fleet requested that she state her name and business. She said that her name is Bo-Katan Kryze and that she needs an audience with Chancellor Mon Mothma immediately to warn her of a threat that has returned to the galaxy, one that destroyed Bo's fleet when she was trying to take her home planet back from the Imperial remnant. The Admiral of the fleet asked that she wait a moment, as she would contact the Chancellor, so Bo told him to tell her the name of the threat was Grand Admiral Thrawn. Some of the deck crew were shocked hearing this, as some of them had escaped him during the escape of the first rebel base on Adalon. The Admiral at first thought the whole thing was ridiculous, but when he saw their faces he wasn't so sure, so he immediately got into contact with Mothma. Mothma answered the transmission from the Admiral, and the Admiral told her that a Mandalorian by the name of Bo-Katan Kryze requested an audience with her to warn her that a galactic threat named Grand Admiral Thrawn has returned. And when Mothma heard this, a part of her collapsed a little bit when she heard that name, so she ordered the Admiral to let Bo to enter the planet and her office. So the Admiral told Bo that her access was granted, and so Bo sped her ship as steady as she could to the landing pad closest to the office, and Mothma actually went outside with her New Republic guards to meet Bo and her Mandalorian survivors began talks with Mothma immediately. Mothma, a little skeptical of this, could see the terror on Bo's face that many rebels had during the days of the Rebel Alliance, and Mothma didn't want to take any chances, so she would offer an alliance with Bo and her Mandalorian resistance. Bo also suggested that Mothma should strike an alliance with Boba Fett's newly formed criminal empire, as it was a criminal empire that wanted to help its civilians and not harm them. So it wasn't really a criminal empire. And Bo had been told by Din that Boba had become a great and kind person / leader. Mothma took this into consideration and would begin to make contact with Boba immediately through Bo's hologram, as she had his contact in it. Mothma contacted Boba Fett, who asked to what pleasure did he owe the Chancellor of the New Republic. She told him a galactic threat from the Empire by the name of Grand Admiral Thrawn had returned, and he would take down Boba's empire before or after Thrawn tried to destroy the New Republic. And he already attacked the Mandalorian resistance, so he clearly knew who his enemies were. And once he finds out that Boba killed Imperials, he'll kill Boba too. Hearing all of this information slightly terrified Boba, but he knew if it could kill someone as slick and dangerous as Cad Bane, then he could kill Thrawn. And he didn't like Thrawn attacking an ally of Mando, who saved his criminal empire, so he owed that to Bo, and he would owe that to Bo, Mando, and the New Republic. So he agreed to assist and ally with Chancellor Mon Mothma and the New Republic. Mothma was relieved to hear Boba's eagerness to ally with the New Republic. The next phase is to prepare the fleet, as that'll be what Thrawn will be doing. Thrawn requested the exact instructions on how to fly his ships into Mandalore, as he had learnt that there was a security system that Moff Gideon had installed to make the planet seem too dangerous to enter into. So Moff Gideon, fearing a little bit of losing his position in the Imperial Remnant, or worse, not fully understanding the lengths Thrawn would go to, as he still understood that his 7th Starfleet during the days of the Empire was formidable before Thrawn's disappearance. Gideon gave Thrawn the instructions, and with Thrawn's acceptance into the planet from Gideon, 4 Imperial shuttles with an escort of 14 TIE fighters landed on the planet's surface near the ruined capital city of Sundari to be greeted by Moff Gideon, his 3 Praetorian guards, and 10 Mandalorian stormtroopers. The doors of each shuttle opened and ran out a mix of Imperial stormtroopers and night troopers, who all formed a line for Grand Admiral Thrawn to walk out with Commander Enoch to be greeted. To Moff Gideon's surprise, Thrawn thanked each trooper and thanked Gideon even for allowing his forces to enter his territory and to be greeted by him. He made it clear that he was aware of Gideon's lack of belief in him, but he simply said he respected his opinion and had learned from his arrogant ways during the Empire, and would prove that Gilad Palion was correct to believe that Thrawn himself will unify the Imperial remnants, and wanted to begin with Gideon. He also made it clear that Gideon would get a bigger army, as he is bringing forces from the unknown regions to join him in the battle. Gideon, liking these terms and starting to respect Thrawn a little bit, would agree to these terms and told Thrawn that his Mandalorian stormtroopers will act as a special forces unit, as too much of his army was destroyed, and he now only has a TIE fighter squadron stationed near the base, and was willing to commit 5% of it. Not that it was particularly large, but Thrawn accepted this offer with much grace, as he understood that respect was the only way to true military leadership and victory. It did concern him that he let a fleet get away, but he knew the New Republic would show up and destroy his fleet the moment they found out about him anyways. So he wanted to lure the New Republic in to think they will destroy their fleets, as most of them would be arrogant to believe they could take out the Imperial remnants easily, but in his mind they would get a different scenario, one that favored the Imperial remnant. After securing Gideon and his remnant's loyalty to Thrawn, Thrawn went to see his most loyal officer, Gilad Palion. who was absolutely thrilled and delighted to know that he returned, but was curious to know what took him so long to return and why now. He explained to Palion he was taken to the furthest reaches of the galaxy beyond the Outer Rim and the unknown regions, and after about 10 years they were able to rebuild the Imperial Star Destroyer engine as well as the hyperdrive, as these Star Destroyers were damaged but were still functional enough. In all actuality, it only took Thrawn 3 years to return to the galaxy, but when he returned, he saw the Empire's incompetency because of Palpatine. So he understood that he needs to be more respectful and nicer to his men and women, and to let the Rebel Alliance win. Let them become what they could now call themselves New Republic, and let themselves become corrupt and egotistical. While he waited, he went back to the unknown regions to meet up with the Chiss Ascendancy to relearn how to become a better admiral, and that's where he learned to be kinder and respect his Imperial personnel. He also dropped the Great Mothers off at Dathomir II to help him build their little Dathomirian army that he had brought back with them. He watched the New Republic become too powerful and watched the Imperial remnant form and struggle to find a leader to unite them. And with Thrawn learning better tactics from his roots on his home world of Chiss, and he was ready to bring the New Republic he was ready to bring the Imperial remnant together. Palion, had only hearing the parts Thrawn needed him to hear, liked this idea, and always believed he would unite the remnant. He, without a second thought or any questions about the time it took to reconstruct Thrawn's Star Destroyers, told Thrawn he was right behind him. This would be happening over the month, as he was uniting the Imperial remnants and got the rest of the Imperial Remnant Council to join his alliance. Then he would spend the next 2 months getting the Imperial remnants hiding in the unknown regions to return to the edge of the known galaxy at unknown regions planets like Ilum and other planets, so they could catch the New Republic off guard with their 2,602 Imperial Star Destroyers, 102,428 Gazanti-class cruisers, 29,207 Arquaintance-class light cruisers, and 9 Super Star Destroyers ready for battle. Each leader would get their own Super Star Destroyer and would lead fleets of 10,000 Gazanti-class cruisers, 2,500 Arquaintance-class light cruisers, 200 Imperial Star Destroyers each. And Thrawn would have the Chimera, 100 Star Destroyers, 2,000 Gazanti-class cruisers, and 1,000 Arquaintance light cruisers in his own fleet, which would make him a terrifying threat to the galaxy, with the New Republic thinking this was going to be an easy, medium-sized fleet. With the rest of the remaining fleet would attack the other New Republic planets / systems, and the fleets would try and spread out the New Republic defense fleets and their allies. To do this, they had 20 medium-sized fleets, which would consist of 800 Gazanti-class cruisers, 300 Arquaintance light cruisers, and 4 Imperial Star Destroyers per fleet. While the small fleets, which was about 100 of them, would consist of 44 Gazanti-class cruisers, 22 Arquaintance-class light cruisers, and 1 Imperial Star Destroyer per fleet. And not to mention, they had nearly millions of starfighters of all sorts, including shuttles, interceptors, bombers, and starfighters, over 500,000 ground vehicles, and nearly 42.5 million stormtroopers, including a near 5,000 night troopers from the Chimera. Thrawn now had an army, maybe not the size of the Confederacy of Independent Systems or the Galactic Empire, but an army that is going to destroy the New Republic once and for all. While Thrawn spent 3 months preparing his fleet for his galactic takeover, Chancellor Mon Mothma was sending 15 fleets to their 15 most important shipyards and ground vehicle factories, which included companies such as the Mon Calamaran Shipyards, Kuat Drive Yards, Fondor Shipyards, Senior Fleet Systems, Corellian Engineering Corporation, and 10 other companies. As Mon Mothma only had 2,000 ships available at the time, she decided to have 667 defense fleets built, which would consist of 12 ships each, one fleet for each star system. These would include 4 Defender-class cruisers, 4 Hammerhead corvettes, 3 CR-90 corvettes, 1 Nebulon B frigate, and 1 MC-80 star cruiser, either a Home 1 or Liberty type. And this was per fleet. The issue with this fleet, though, was that it was way smaller than the Imperial Remnant fleet. Not to mention, the New Republic only had 144,108 starfighters of various types spread out throughout the galaxy to defend their various territories, and they had no ground vehicles, and with all these fleets combined, they only had just over 4.5 million New Republic troopers. And most of them were really just security forces, which meant most of them weren't proper military troopers. This would not do, and Thrawn would easily crush the New Republic, so Mothma needed to adapt, or they would all be destroyed from their own arrogance and lack of proper military structure. Mothma had all corporations building ships and ground vehicles while putting out a military draft to get more New Republic troopers, while and with enough time, they would become victors. The battle begun with 129 Imperial Remnant fleets jumping out of hyperspace, and they would attack 129 systems each at a time to destroy the New Republic defense fleets in order to figure out where the New Republic shipyards and factories were, as they weren't sure where the New Republic would station their manufacturing facilities, assuming that they had manufacturing facilities. They had 100 small fleets, 20 medium fleets, and 9 large fleets, along with Thrawn's extra fleet and a tiny fleet for Gideon, who would take out the allies of the New Republic, and he knew who the allies might likely be. The New Republic prepared for this attack planned for Thrawn to attack with a massive army, so their fleet would spread across their territories, and the Imperial Remnant, especially Thrawn, couldn't be everywhere at once, even though they thought it would be a challenge. Since Thrawn returned, but they didn't expect to find their battles to be this challenging. The defense fleets would have their fighters and interceptors leave the hangars of the Defender-class cruisers with their frigates and corvettes, would deploy their starfighters, with the MC-80 Star Cruiser launching its fighters as a 3-wave strategy to then just slow down the Imperial Remnant attack, and then to launch their bombers next. Their fighters started to cut through the TIE series starfighters, with some bombing runs from the bombers in Remnant naval shipyards, mostly being successful, but unfortunately a good amount of their fighters were cut down to the massive swarm of fighters, but they started making progress, with at least 32 systems being able to fend off the small fleets, and 2 other systems successfully fending off the medium fleets. But unfortunately, Thrawn and his Imperial Remnant Council personal fleets and the other remaining fleets were destroying system fleets after system fleets, with more progress being made against the leader's fleets than Thrawn's fleet, as his respect and kindness towards his personnel made them more effective than any other fleet in the galaxy. This all meant that the New Republic lost at least 46,800 planets in just a month. But this was expected and was partially a part of the plan, as the Imperial Remnant wouldn't be able to hold all that territory with the amount of forces they had, giving the New Republic an advantage to take them back. While all this was happening over the month, Moff Gideon would be searching for Boba Fett, Greef Karga, IG-11, Cara Dune, Din Djarin, Grogu, and Bo-Katan, who joined Boba with 2/5 of the New Republic attack fleet at Tatooine, as Boba knew the planet like the back of his hand. Ahsoka's Spectre unit and Luke Skywalker would also join the fight against Moff Gideon, and they would not let him escape, not this time. Gideon had found out that Tatooine was one of the planets they were in, besides Navarro, which had actually been able to rebuild a little bit after the pirate attack organized by Gideon's remnant for revenge against Mando and Karga for killing off his forces on Navarro and severely crippling his remnant. But what they never got to find out on Mandalore was that Gideon had been creating a secret surprise for them, one that the Imperial Remnant Council had been suspicious of but were not aware of. Moff Gideon landed a shuttle from his very own Executor-class dreadnought given to him from Thrawn, but when they landed, stormtroopers didn't come out of that shuttle. No. 20 Force-sensitive clones of Gideon came out of the shuttle, and while they had blasters, they had the Force, so Luke and Ahsoka would attack the clones to try and hold them off for everyone else to fight off the army. Another shuttle landed with the 10 Mandalorian stormtroopers that survived the traps on Mandalore, with the 3 Praetorian guards and Moff Gideon too. The Mandalorian stormtroopers would act as special forces, and then another 2,000 shuttles landed with 40,000 stormtroopers, which which was nearly enough to take the entire planet, with the New Republic and their allies only having over 11.5 thousand troops in total on the ground. But Boba Fett had the Slave One, and you cannot mess with the Slave One. The ground battle would begin, and the New Republic would make a little bit of progress, but not much, as they were outnumbered for now, even with the Mandalorian warriors working as a tight group. But more New Republic gunships and shuttles were landing with the rest of the troops, which was about 38.5 thousand in total. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Fifth Fleet decided they needed to attack one of the largest fleets, preferably not Thrawn's, as the New Republic were only making small progress, with losing over 10% of their territory within the first month of fighting the Imperial Remnant. The second month of fighting would be a struggle for Tatooine and for the other New Republic fleets across the galaxy, as they only cut down 27 more small fleets and 3 more medium fleets, and there was an engagement between the Fifth Fleet and one of the lesser popular Remnant leaders, to which they were able to destroy most of the fleet, which excited the New Republic to know they finally made such progress. But the problem was that 56% of the fleet was destroyed just to beat this remnant fleet, which concerns the New Republic, as they didn't know if they would be able to hold off the remnant for much longer, as they struggled to make up for the fleet. Luckily for them, they had new ships that could be added to the Fifth Fleet, as they could always rebuild the fleet per month, and it was the most successful fleet. But all of this action saw the galaxy and when the galaxy saw this happening, nearly 100 million people joined the New Republic, which would boost Republic morale and would make their battles way easier. Back on Tatooine, however, the casualties went skyrocketing for the Remnants, where they lost 20,000 stormtroopers and 8 Mandalorian stormtroopers, as well as all the clones and most of the fleet above, while the New Republic lost 50% of their battle groups, and the Mandalorian Resistance too lost their fleets, most of their fleet, as well as only 12,000 New Republic troopers were lost in the battle, as most of them were mainly officers. But they still had over 100,000 New Republic troopers. 50,000 of them would go to defend Navarro, and the other 50,000 would stay, and the extra 3.5 thousand troopers would help the Mandalorians get back Mandalore. Soon Tatooine would be theirs, and soon the leaders and main gang would be able to fight Gideon and Boba Fett, continuing to lead the charge against the remaining fleet above. Thrawn was continuing to dominate the galaxy over the next month, with very little casualties in some systems, and many successful ground assaults, with the New Republic losing another 29,250 planets, which was bringing it all up to 20% of their entire territory being lost. But they were starting to be able to make progress within the second month of fighting, thanks to their preparation from the beginning. The Fifth Fleet would engage with another 2 less popular remnant leaders, while one would escape to Thrawn's fleet and the other being defeated at the space battle of Naboo. They would, of course, lose 60% of what they had left, but it meant much more progress, as the remnant leader that escaped managed to only get away with her dreadnought and an Imperial Star Destroyer, as well as 4 Gazanti-class cruisers only. The New Republic's fleet assisted many defense fleets in destroying the small fleets, which would only lose them another 40% of their remaining fleet, New Republic fleet. But they also destroyed another 7 medium fleets. They also managed to get another 50 million New Republic troopers into their ranks, so they would begin immediately to begin taking back the lost planets from the remnants. as they were starting to fracture a little, even with Thrawn wiping out so many defense fleets. Although, little signs of worry started to get to Thrawn as he was losing multiple fleets, and he had noticeably been making mistakes after taking at least 6 of the shipyards from the New Republic, losing 700 Gazanti-class cruisers, 270 Acquaintance-class cruisers, and 30 Imperial Star Destroyers, as the New Republic were starting to understand his tactics and try to become unpredictable and do what they wouldn't do normally, and the New Republic had newly built ships in those shipyards readily available to make Thrawn's fleet suffer. Another challenge for Thrawn was that his army only had 14 fleets left, but he might be able to rebuild his fleet and his newly captured naval shipyards, including the Kuat Drive Yards, who so graciously accepted. Another month would come around and Thrawn was able to create large fleets of nearly 1,000 extra naval ships, up to 40,000 starfighters, and millions more troopers, crew, and pilots from their territories in the unknown regions and their outer rim areas. The New Republic kept creating nearly 1,000 ground vehicles per month, reaching up to 4,000 which reached them up to 4,000 more ground vehicles. And obviously, they kept getting more troops, pilots, and crew from their various territories. They were making significant progress on the ground as the remnant were way too spread out, with them getting back 50,000 out of 78,300 planets from their previous territories in all regions in the galaxy, except for wild space and the unknown regions. The problem was that Thrawn was gaining more forces to add to his fleet, including new ships, to which he would be able to constantly destroy New Republic fleets that challenged him, and to decrease New Republic morale by making it look like his fleet would always be too big for them to destroy, but they would continue to grow their forces and hopefully destroy another remnant council fleet. But if they couldn't, they would just continue to destroy the remaining medium-sized fleets, because the New Republic shipbuilding capabilities were split in half. Mothma would send the remaining 2 available offensive fleets to join the 5th Fleet and wipe out the 2 medium fleets and Brendel Hux's fleet, which he would perish in the battle within an hour, and the New Republic only lost 30% of their fleet due to better developed strategies that would catch Hux off guard, preventing him from ever being able to finish Project Necromancer. This was a huge victory for the New Republic, which boosted even more morale. Thrawn could have the biggest fleet in the galaxy, but it would never stop the New Republic from winning. 2 months ago on Tatooine, the New Republic and their allies would destroy Gideon's remnant, and Gideon with his Praetorian Guards dueled against Luke, Ahsoka, and Bo, as the final fight between Gideon and Din was Din's fight to win, to avenge his fallen children of the Watch, brothers in arms, and to keep his son Grogu safe once and for all. Now Gideon was furious. He created 20 clones that he made behind the Remnant's council's back, and these Jedi and Mandalorians just kill them all. That was not okay in his mind, and so he and Din would clash weapons, with Din using his ancient Mandalorian spear, and Gideon using his own spear that he found from another Mandalorian. And they would go about their fight for a long time, but in the end Din would win and they would capture Gideon rather than execute him. So as that was the way of a terrorist. Most of you know who I'm talking about. Saw It was a glorious day as the remnant fleet over Tatooine would fall and they would retreat back to Mandalore, which the New Republic would take back with ease as Gideon's Defense TIE Squadron came to attack, but they met with a New Republic Navy that would instantly crush them, and there was only 2 Mandalorian stormtroopers defending the base, so Mandalore now belonged to Bo-Katan and her allies, who she raised the Darksaber in victory, and everyone cheered. But the fight was far from over, as they had one more threat to finish off: Grand Admiral Thrawn and his remaining fleets. So they set off to assist the New Republic fleets. The New Republic, with an extra fleet in reserve from the final month of Thrawn's preparation and their preparation of the war, would go to the 5th Fleet in order to engage with another 3 Remnant Council fleets that had to spread out their forces to defend their shipyards, which the New Republic would only lose 12% of their fleet, as the Remnant Council was too spread out, and would get their and the New Republic would get their shipyards back, but not before Thrawn got the new ships and vehicles. But it wouldn't matter, as Thrawn could see that he was struggling to consistently hold the territory, and started to see the New Republic as a threat, as they were starting to do unpredictable things like build a massive fleet and not being as arrogant and egotistical as he had believed they would become. While the New Republic had the shipyards back, they decided to wipe out the remaining medium fleets, which would lose them 10% of their remaining fleet, but they would destroy them, and they would also manage to regain the remaining 28,300 planets with the loss of millions. While this was happening over the month, Bo, Din, Hera, Luke, and Ahsoka, as well as new members and the rest of the gang. These new members would include Leia, Han, Chewbacca, Lando, C-3PO, and R2-D2, who would join them in taking out the Dathomirian army, as well as the Great Mothers, which would be challenging, but just like Mother Talzin, they would be overwhelmed and defeated, and they would take Dathomir, but remain neutral with the witches that lived in on the mountains, and would now prepare to join the New Republic to do the impossible task, defeating Thrawn. Thrawn decided to attack the Hosnian system, as this was the last thing they could do to potentially destroy the New Republic. But they would meet 30,000 naval ships from the defense fleets, home fleets, tactical fleets, and offensive fleets, with millions of starfighters and gunships, as well as 100,000 ground vehicles, and 1 million New Republic troopers, and ground fighting would begin on the ground, with Commander Enoch leading the charge, and with Thrawn, Palion, and the previous surviving admiral, as well as Thrawn's extra small fleet, to destroy the New Republic, here and now, as this would be the final fight. Thrawn was destroying the fleet, but was noticeably taking heavy losses just as much. Some hours would see him winning, while others saw the New Republic winning, and he still couldn't kill Mothma, as she was hidden and guarded safely. What Thrawn couldn't have anticipated was Ahsoka's unexpected attack, taught to her by Anakin Skywalker, as he never learned about Ahsoka due to her never having to go to Peridia, where Thrawn was originally taken to. And she, with her crew, she'd been with, managed to board the Chimera, and she had a special surprise of her own that she had managed to find on a planet hiding in the mountains of Dathomir, after sneaking a ride back with Thrawn, and was mastering the Force, as well as trying to make his way back to the galaxy, where he made it to Dathomir. And as the crew fought their way to the bridge, holding a lightsaber at Thrawn was none other than Ezra Bridger himself. And don't worry, Ezra reunited with his friends and family, and they actually hugged instead of standing there like they just saw each other yesterday, even though it was 10 years. And Sabine and Ezra actually cared that Thrawn returned, and would act on it with the crew. Ezra told Thrawn it was over, and Palion would attempt to shoot, but Sabine would shoot him first. Thrawn would challenge Ezra to a fist fight, as he knew the battle was over, as the New Republic had the advantage to destroy his fleet, and they would, with over 10,000 ships remaining, over 10,000 ships being destroyed, while they lost 25,000 ships due to Thrawn's leadership at the beginning of the battle, as well as the ground army being defeated, and Commander Enoch would be killed by Agent Callus, who would join Ezra's crew on the Chimera, and Thrawn would fight in hand-to-hand combat, but Ezra had become more unpredictable with the Force, and managed to knock him out temporarily, and would evacuate the Chimera, and as they escaped, the New Republic fleet was already destroying the rest of the fleet, and Thrawn, who woke up, would stand at the bridge of his ship, and decided he would go down with his ship in honor, and would send a message to the New Republic and the galaxy, telling them that they fought valiantly, and was very impressed with them, and wished they could continue this song and dance with them, but he would never forget it, and he smiled and laughed with joy as the Chimera blew up. Ezra's crew, Mon Mothma, the New Republic, and the rest of the galaxy would hear this message, and would surprisingly give him the remnant and the fallen New Republic citizens, both military and non, and then they cheered in victory as they and the fallen New Republic citizens, both military and non, would give him a moment of silence. And then they cheered in victory as they were able to save the galaxy, and doing the impossible. Even though Thrawn caused so much chaos, they decided to go into the unknown regions and secure a peace deal with the Chiss Ascendancy, as well as colonizing the unknown regions and the rest of the Outer Rim, as well as other regions, to stop any threats that would attack them from those specific regions. And the New Republic would rebuild their military and defense fleets, as well as destroying the criminal factions and supplying the people with all the civilian aid they could ever need. Supply the people with all the civilian aid they could ever have needed, supplying people's trust with love and for the New Republic. It would take them 12 years, but they would successfully rebuild the galaxy, and they would make it way better than ever before. Luke would continue to build his Jedi Order with Ezra, Cal Kestis, Ahsoka, Sabine, Jason Syndulla, and Ben Solo, joining with the many exceptions of attachments, and they could always see their families at any time. Boba Fett would be allowed to keep his empire and Tatooine, and it would grow, and it would help making Tatooine a much better place, to which they were even able to bring their planet back to where it used to be, when they found its secret waters under the surface, thanks to Boba's training as a Tusken Raider. Din would join the New Republic as a marshal, and Bo would be able to rebuild Sindari back to what it used to be before the Clone Wars, and Mon Mothma would have Bo-Katan would also still gain independence on Mandalore as well, and Mothma would have rebuilt a galaxy that she was a part of, something that she had built, something she could be proud of, and she would leave her mark on a galaxy that knew true peace and prosperity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our story. Let's talk about our story, shall we? So, there was a lot of crazy things that happened in the story. This story is kind of how I would have written at the end of Mandalorian Season 3, and then I would have probably added something else to it if I was writing that specific era for Disney. And I just feel like it would have been interesting for Thrawn to actually come back on his own, not just wait 10 years to come back. I just felt like it would be interesting for him to kind of be manipulating events behind the scenes without having to do anything and just let everything play out, as he knew the New Republic would never come for him or find him straight away. And I really wanted this to just be big scale again. Like, I just wanted this big scale battle to happen, and I kind of wanted to have it where the New Republic and its citizens kind of almost respected Thrawn a little bit, as not just because of the message, but because there was a lot of life lost on both sides, and they wanted to make sure something like this can never happen again. And the respect kind of also goes to him because he did technically get them to rebuild their military and to make the galaxy a better place. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you love this story. You guys are awesome, and you have been watching the alternate Star Wars galaxy.